Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Groot-Nibelink. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, Blake and I are going to give you all the best streamers and ad options for next week so you can start planning early. Let's get it. And of course, I have your friend and my best friend, the man whose voice was so sexy God himself had to take it from him, Blake Creamer. Blake, how are we feeling tonight?
No, oh God. You know what, Nate? I'm not at my best. All right. This is about as good as I have right now. So bear with me, folks. But definitely hit us up on the YouTube because I'm going to be doing a lot of nonverbal communication today. Just me sitting here smoldering. All right. Putting up the vibe. Are you picking it up, Nate?
I'm picking it up. I think it would be worthwhile to just watch a video of you smoldering for the full hour or so that we'll be here. So
I have that.
think people should.
Yeah, I do have an OnlyFans. Yeah, it's also, and I have a lot of pictures of my feet on there as well, if that interests you at all. So anyways, that's neither here nor there. We got to get to biz.
We should probably get to biz. So I'll kick it over to you, good buddy, as long as your voice will hang on, but take us through some Newsies.
Newsies. Yeah, that's, I feel good about that. Okay. Let's get into the news here. So, first off, Dylan Gunther, he's out indefinitely with an upper body injury. Hit us out of nowhere, which really stinks. And we don't have really any information on the injury or the timetable for his return. So, yeah, Josh Doan was the call up, and he was skating on the second line and the top power play, if I'm not mistaken. So that's could be an option if you're looking at Utah. But I mean, we need to see a little bit more. Let's take a look at the game log here and see what kind of minutes he got. But yeah, Dylan Guenther out. That stinks. Hopefully more information coming soon. Over to Pittsburgh, Evgeny Malkin, Big Gino. Yeah. One of our mascots here. Well, he's not a mascot, right? I mean, that implies an animal, but he is one of our favorite guys here. We need a player whose last name is Apple. Then we can have that player and then, Evgeny Malkin. Are you
right.
Making the connection here, Nate?
I'm making the connection.
Yeah. Apples, Genos, it's not hard. Yeah, this is the best I can do, folks. All right. Evgeny Malkin, he's got an upper body injury. That's kept him out of 2 straight games. So check his status there. He's still day-to-day. Cody Glass has been centering line 2 in his absence. He's also getting some power play time, but Jimmy cracked corn, and I don't care. All right. Over to Minnesota, Brock Faber. He took an elbow to the head, and this is a guy that's pretty darn durable. So it was sort of a surprise to see him go to the room there. So check his status again. We don't know the situation, but Minnesota in general, very banged up, aren't they, Nate?
Yeah, it's pretty tough, honestly. Like, it's almost hard to fault Philip Gustafson for coughing up a few terrible games here in a row, but yeah, everybody's sick, apparently. Everybody's getting injured left, right, and center. They're down like their top 3 defensemen at this point. Brodin, Spurgeon, and Faber are all out. Obviously, their superstar, Kirill Kaprizov, is out, which we'll get to here. But yeah, it is rough times in Minnesota. But I mean, they have been winning like decently well up until this last couple of games.
Yep. That leaves Declan Chisholm. All right. Did you see his nice pass there to the Colorado player? I don't mind who he passed to.
Yeah.
Ross Colton, got a goal. We can talk about that later, Nate. But it's slim pickings there on defense in Minnesota. So just keep an eye on that. Speaking of Minnesota, Cap is skating, which is good news, but we still don't have a timeline for his return. So obviously he's the engine there on Minnesota. So we need him back in the lineup ASAP because Matt Boldy's doing jack squat without Cap. I hate this. So anyways, we need Cap back and we need him soon. I want to talk about Connor Ingram. He's been recalled to Utah after a conditioning stint. He picked up a win down there with what's that team again? The Arizona Roadrunners. Is that what it is?
It's
Tucson.
The Roadrunners Tucson, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a sweet name. Roadrunners. I like that better. Utah should actually consider that. The Utah Roadrunners. I don't know. I'm going to write an email.
Could be something there.
Yeah, I think there is something there. Let's we can tag team it, take the credit for it. Apples and
Or
Ginos,
you know, it is kind of funny, right? Like it was a coyote and the roadrunner kind of thing, like situation there. But
buddy. I wasn't picking that up. All right,
yeah,
you're a savant. Your brain works in ways that scientists can't even begin to understand. Um, so Ingram's back. Vegetable lasagna. Carol Vamelka. Like we'll see what happens. Got to win here tonight. Could it be a net share there? I mean, I don't know. How do you see the Utah goaltending situation moving forward, Nate?
yeah, I think Vijmelka's played well enough that he'll at least get a 50-50 to start. Like, I don't think Ingram's just going to walk back into some massive
Yep.
share in the net. That would be kind of mind boggling, honestly, at this point. But I do think that they'll probably go right back to a 50-50. That's my baseline estimate at this point. But yeah, Ingram's got to prove something because Vejmelka's been actually pretty good.
Yep, for sure. Over to Columbus, one of the funnest teams in fantasy right now, folks. Sean Monahan, this isn't so fun. Sean Monahan, he was placed on the IR he's got a wrist sprain. That's what's been reported there. So it's Adam Fantilli season. All right. One of our sleepers in the offseason. It's coming home to roost, folks. He's centering Marchenko and Dmitry Voronkov now, and also took Monahan's place on power play 1. So that's a nice spot to be. I think he's a spec ad for now. He got 19 minutes last game with an assist, played pretty well. So let's see what happens there. But I do like that ad. I like Fantilli rest of season. Just, he's got all the pieces in place. It's just he needs some of that deployment. And yeah, he's a young kid, so he's out there making mistakes and trying to figure things out. So I like Fantilli there. Moving over to Vancouver. Oh God, we got to talk about the Canucks. Why? Philip Hronik is he's in the AHL. They put him down there for a conditioning stint. So that means a return is probably imminent and they can really use him. I mean, the Canucks, the good thing is the Canucks are pretty darn good defensively. The bad thing is they're really terrible offensively. So I don't know if Hronik's going to really help in that department, but I mean, getting a top 4 defenseman back in your lineup is going to probably be a net positive for the team. So keep an eye on that. And last thing, Mason Marchment for the Dallas Stars. He's out until late January. I don't remember what his injury is. I had it. It's like, did he get hit in the face with a stick or a puck? It's like
Yeah, he
some
got a puck
orbital
to the
injury or something like
face.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, they said it wasn't orbital, but he broke a couple of bones around his nose, in his nose. I don't know exactly, but either way, pretty banged up, and yeah, obviously taking some time to heal that thing up.
There goes that modeling career. I mean, you've seen that guy's headshot. Like, not a lot of people can make a mustache look as good as Mason Marchment does. So let's agree on that. Nate, that's the news. Whoa, I did it, and it feels good. We got to talk about that schedule. We got to attack that thing.
All right, let's attack that schedule. On Monday, we've got 3 games. Tuesday, we've got 13 games. Wednesday, 2 games. Thursday, again, 13 games. Friday, 2 games. Saturday, 15 games. And Sunday, 3 games. So if you're paying attention at home, that does equal a whole lot of fantasy crap. 51 total games played. It is a normal week. And we have 2 teams that have the Monday, Tuesday back-to-back to open the week. That's Calgary and Philadelphia. But honestly, again, in this week with 13 games on the Tuesday, it's probably not going to matter for you unless you're really loaded up on one of the teams that's not playing. Then you just have the one team with the Monday, Wednesday to open the week. That's going to be Edmonton this week. They also have 4 total games. So it's definitely going to be a place you can look. But yeah, that's about as good as it gets for the early week. In the midweek, you do have 2 teams rather, that play Wednesday, Friday on the off nights. That's Buffalo and Carolina. There are no teams that play Friday and Sunday on the off nights. So you are going to have to just deal with the weekend on basically a single game situation, one by one as it comes. So yeah, there's no way to sugarcoat it. It's a pretty awful week, all things told. It's probably a situation where you get your one Edmonton streamer at the start of the week, and then you kind of rock some goalie pickups wherever you can find good situations for some backups, getting some play, something like that, playing against some of the basement teams. That's honestly about as good as it's going to get this week. I don't know if you got anything to add there, Blake, or if you just want to bellyache alongside me here, but the floor is yours.
I do. I just want to commiserate. This is horrible. We have skills, people. We can help you stream, but the NHL's not helping us out.
This is true. Let's head over though, Blake. Let's get into some lowered expectations. Can you take us through the teams with the worst schedule for next week?
You bet your sweet bippy, buddy. Everybody. They all stink. That's not true, but one team stinks in particular, and that is the Boston Bruins. Excuse me. Yeah, they play 2 games, 0 off nights. So that's a really tough place to be. If you're rostering fringe Boston players, they play Tuesday, the 13-game Tuesday, and then the 15-game Saturday. It's very bad. So yeah, we got to look at some of the fringe players there on Boston, and there's a lot of them, to be honest. Like, we've got Pasta, McAvoy, Marchand. You're holding, obviously, but everybody under those 3 players, I mean, we're going to have to make some decisions. Guys like Elias Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov in your banger leagues, Pavel Zacha, who's been getting power play 1, the Coilers getting punted to the sun, buddy. Yeah, we don't need that. I mean, talk to me about some of these Bruins. What are you doing with Elias Lindholm in particular?
Yeah, Lindholm is the one that might have some more consideration for people, but like he's not playing with Pasternak at the moment. He's not on the Pasternak power play unit. They split them up again. Yeah, basically, I have not a lot of interest in what Lindholm is bringing to the table. The underlying metrics are like I guess okay, but the average time on ice is down under 18 minutes again. Like, yeah, I'm not interested in Lindholm really even as much more than a streamer right now. So in a bad week, totally okay to drop him. Totally okay to drop Zadorov even in a bangers league. He's kind of one of the dime a dozen streamer defensemen with good periffs. I think you can pick up, and Zacha has been pretty terrible for a lot of the season. He does have 3 assists, I guess, in his last 5 games here, 18 and a half minutes, but totally fine to drop him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What are your thoughts on Charlie McAvoy? Because he's getting power play too. Obviously, this is a defenseman that was pretty highly coveted in draft season, but he's a guy that hasn't really come to play in terms of fantasy this year. And the Bruins are stinky right now. Is there any thought of maybe moving on from McAvoy in a week like this?
I don't think I'm there yet. There's so few defensemen that are actually worth rostering. Like, maybe in 10 team leagues, that's more of a conversation where there might actually be somebody out there to get, or maybe you happen to actually run into one of the big pickups of the year. And now you've kind of been running with 5 defensemen and you're kind of looking at it like, I don't really know if I need to have this guy on my roster. So, like, I'm sure there are scenarios, there are leagues out there where it would make sense to drop Charlie McAvoy in a week like this. Just for your average 12 team league, I don't think I'm there yet.
Yeah. Did you see this Marchand Pasternak stuff on
Yeah.
X? Pretty funny. Like, I just feel like media is trying to create these stories. Like, I don't know
Oh,
where
for
this guy
sure.
got his information. Like, even if it was like anything based in the truth, like he didn't have enough to go forward with it. And it's like, yeah, everybody's just looking for these stories. Like I just, it's really frustrating to watch. And I'm glad Marchand kind of came out and put this guy in his place. So I don't know,
Yeah.
but I don't really like to shout at the rat, but I did like what he did there. So anyways, that's my thing on Marchand there. Let's move on to the next team with a stinky schedule. Minnesota Wild, they play 2 games with 1 off night. So that off night for Minnesota is the Wednesday, right? They play against Edmonton on Wednesday. So you could hold these off nights are coveted this week. So you could
Yeah.
hold your fringe Minnesota players for Wednesday and then bounce them, right? But we got to talk about some of those players. And we've got Middleton there, who's back off injury. He's actually playing pretty darn well, which I think is kind of an easy drop, to be honest. But Marco Rossi, that's a piece. And Ryan Hartman, too. I'll throw him in there and throw to you. Like, what are you doing with those 2 pieces there? Because, they're doing stuff. Obviously, Minnesota's in a rough stretch right now just due to all the injuries. But, Rossi in particular has had a great season.
Yeah, it is a weird spot. Like Middleton is a little bit more of a bangers guy too. He's kind of run into some points and some goals specifically that's made him have some broader appeal. But um, the one thing that could get you interested in Middleton is just some additional ice time, right? If Brodeen continues to be out, and Faber obviously, and Spurgeon being out, so that could be one reason that you might want to hang on to Middleton at least for that Wednesday. But yeah, I agree. You're not really going to miss out on too much by dropping Jake Middleton. Marco Rossi is the much tougher quandary here. By this time, by
Laundry.
Wednesday, yeah, by Wednesday next week, we might have Cap back in the lineup. That's a possibility, I think. So yeah, that's at least something you have to consider at this point. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Just thinking about the situation, is this the point at which it starts to tail off for Rossi? I still think you're keeping him for the Wednesday, no matter what Cap status is. Um, and then you kind of take it from there. You can go into the weekend, if your weekend you really need like an extra goalie stream somewhere or something like that, then maybe you're thinking about dropping Rossi, but
Yeah.
you'd probably also want to have some kind of confirmation that yes, he is off power play one or something like that, or he's not even playing with Kaprizov, that he's in strength or something. You'd want to have something more to go off of before dropping a guy who's got 8 points in his last five.
Yeah, he's cooking. Really nice to see Marco Rossi this season. So it'll be a good data point when Cap does get back, because obviously it's going to cap his ceiling. So we'll have to see what's going on. No pun intended. All right.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, maybe it was intended. I don't know. We'll edit that later. This whole thing is unusable with my voice. I'm sorry about this, Nate. This is terrible. All right. There are 14 teams that play 3 games with 0 off nights. We're not going to go into all those teams, but yeah, you're going to have to make some decisions with your fringe players on those teams. So definitely hit us up with your sit starts, with your drops, all that stuff. We're here to help you. But Nate, now it's time to talk about the best teams to stream in a little segment we call Crossing the Streams. My voice sounds better when I kind of push it like that. I don't know, but then it hurts a little bit, like I can taste blood right now. So yeah. It's funny. Every time we talk about crossing the streams, Nate, it reminds me like those times when you and I cross the streams. You know what I mean? It reminds me of those different stories that we have. And what the one it's kind of reminding me of right now. Remember that time we went for Mexican that time to get those fish tacos? You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Yeah. Nate and I, we go to get some fish tacos. There's actually this like taco truck. It was a beautiful, beautiful summer day. Like Nate and I, we went rollerblading. You remember that? You had your
Yeah.
elbow pads on. I had my helmet. Like we were just skating around, right? It was really fun. Anyways, we go to this food truck. We get the fish tacos, and we're just having a super time. And remember the guy selling us the tacos? He recognized you, I think, because you had the hat on, this beautiful Apples and Geno's fantasy hockey hat. And he said, you know what? I listened to you guys. And we were like, wow, buddy, that is amazing. And we were just kind of shooting the crap and really having a nice time. And so, I was feeling the vibe. I'm like, hey, you guys want to cross the streams? But what happened is I had taken a bite of the taco right before I did that. So it sounded like it was like that. And the guy's like, what? I'm like, cross the streams, right? And he thought I said, toss the beans. And so he's like, well, if you say so. And he took a scoop of black beans and he just whipped it out the thing, right? And so I ducked because I'm pretty agile. I got out of the way. A couple beans grazed Nate's ear, right? So he took a couple hits, but he dodged to the side. And the weird thing was there was this lady going behind us. She was pushing a baby stroller. All right. And it was weird. The hot beans went right into the baby stroller. Right. And this could have been a disaster. Right. You remember, Nate, we were a little bit concerned. So I go over and like, oh my God, ma'am, it's your baby. All right. And I look in and there's a giant zucchini in there. There was no baby. There was just a zucchini, like a huge, like gourd. It was just like, I don't know, and it had a little toque on it. It was really nice. So I don't know. I love talking about crossing the streams because it reminds me of all these good times we had. And, luckily no one was hurt in this case. The zucchini got a bit messy, but I mean, that's, that happens sometimes, when you're rollerblading and hot beans get thrown at your head. Right, Nate?
Yes. I have a related question. How was your acid trip last weekend?
Well, you know what, buddy? I wish this was drugs. All right. It would explain a lot of things. Okay. No, this is just try living in here. All right. In this brain. All right. This is what goes on. We got to talk about the best teams to stream. Nate, we're digressing. All right. Why'd you let me do this? All right.
I couldn't hold you back if I tried.
All right. That's fine. Okay. There's no teams that are really great, but we do have the Edmonton Oilers that Nate mentioned earlier. They do have that Monday, Wednesday start, and they play 4 games with 2 off nights. So I think Edmonton is a great way to start your week. They play LA and Minnesota Monday, Wednesday, and there's weirdly some options on that team, starting with Victor Arvidsson and Vasily Podkolzin. I think those are your two best options there. You also got Jeff Skinner, the twirly woo. He's zipping around out there. He doesn't give a damn. He's an old dancing boy. And then you got Adam Henrique as well. If you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel, talk to me about the Edmonton Streamers here, Nate.
Yeah, it's probably, I would definitely agree that Arvidsson is the top of the list. And then there's some conversation to be had between Skinner, Henrique, Podkolzin, all of them getting, well, I guess Skinner's a little bit down. He's more around the 10-minute mark, and Henrique and Podkolzin are around 13 and a half. And yes, that is how deep we are scraping the bottom of the barrel for this week to talk about these guys. But we kind of have to do it at this point. Skinner's got the most points in the last 5 with 3. Henrique and Podkolzin both have 2. Podkolzin has the best underlying numbers, 36 shots per 60, 50th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. I mean, these lines for Edmonton change like every other night, so I don't think there's much that we can say right now that will even be relevant come Monday. But as of right now, the last game lines are Hyman, Draisaitl, McDavid on the top line, and then Nugent Hopkins with Arvidsson and Podkolzin. So based on that alone, yeah, you probably go with Podkolzin over Skinner. So yeah, I guess that's probably the ranking I would do if I was going to do that here. Arvidsson, Podkolzin, Skinner, Henry.
See you at the party, Victor. We like it. All right. This man's an Adonis. He's a beautiful player. Getting, he's under the thumb there of the head coach in Edmonton. He can't get on the power play. That's fine. I do like Victor Arvidsson though, but this is a guy that needs more ice time. Damn it. But he can't get it. Anyways, let's move over to some other teams that have a reasonable schedule, or at least a helpful schedule for you this week. Buffalo and Carolina both played only 2 games, but both of their games are on the off nights. Like, that's where we're at with this type of week. And that's how important these off nights are. So Buffalo, let's take a look at their schedule. They play Wednesday, Friday. Both of these teams play Wednesday, Friday. So,
yeah.
You can maybe get a Monday player and then jump into one of these teams, like, because you're going to have some one-day streams, I think, or look at a goalie stream, like maybe stream a goalie in on Monday if you can, and then get a Wednesday, Friday, something like that. But anyways, let's get into these teams. I do think Buffalo has some real good options here. We've still got Bowen Byram, Owen Power are out there, right? Connor Clifton, Miss Clifton. In your bangers leagues, he does that. So, I mean, you got good options on defense there. I think I'd go Power of those. And then Jason Zucker, right? He's on power play 1 and he's on line 1. What the hell is he doing on your waiver wire? Like, this is a guy that should definitely be rostered for this week. JJ Peterka should definitely be rostered. Dylan Cousins, I think I've seen him in a couple spots in the leagues I'm in. Talk to me about how you're sort of ranking these players here, Nate.
Yeah, it's definitely the best spot to look for fantasy pickups, in my opinion, this week is Buffalo. On the back end, you have Byram, you have Power. Probably one of those is available in a lot of leagues. So that's a good place to start if you need something on back end. And then if you need bangers, then Connor Clifton does that in spades. So that's a good look as well. Then up front, you have Zucker, you have Peterka, you have Cousins. I mean, you can go deeper than that. In the last game, they had Ryan McLeod centering JJ Peterka and Alex Tuck, and he kind of went off a
Looks
little
good.
bit.
Yeah, he actually looked good.
So, I mean, who knows how long that maintains, but if you're getting closer to Wednesday and they're still rocking that line in practice, then maybe you want to cast a look at Ryan McLeod as well. I don't think that's a great look. Like, his underlying numbers have never looked good at any point, but he's been relatively efficient this year, especially when playing with better players like this. So I'm willing to at least entertain the thought, especially in deeper leagues. But between the group of forwards up front, I would go Zucker first right now. Like, it's hard to beat the deployment. He's getting line 1, power play 1, exposure to Tage Thompson, which is kind of the primary thing that we're looking for here. JJ Peterka, I still think, is more innately talented than Jason Zucker, but when Zucker's getting that deployment, I think the results will probably follow just a little bit more. But Peterka I'd still take second, and then Cousins kind of a distant third there for me, and then McLeod following up behind.
It's weird. I feel like players like Cousins and Peterka are going to pop off next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is like one of those like Seth Jarvis situations where they just had that really down season where things weren't really going right. Like Dylan Cousins is a talented player. That's a guy that's put up some really good numbers in this league, and he hasn't been able to match it since that point. So, yeah, I like what they've got going on in Buffalo. I'm glad they're starting to put some wins on the board. But yeah, I'm with you there. I think Zucker is a primo streamo. Okay. Um, Carolina, nothing could be fine up. We got to look at some options on the back end here as well. Dmitry Orlov, he's been doing stuff. He's been doing just enough to stay on your fantasy team, which that's fine. I mean, I've really gotten into players like this season, like trying to find value and like just little bits of value. I'm not looking for a boom or bust player, but a guy that's going to chip away, and that's Dmitry Orlov, right? Sean Walker's out there as well. He's on the second power play now randomly. And how about Jacob Slavin? Slavin Maven. Do you need blocks? Because he does that and he doesn't do anything else. Okay. So he's out there. Jack Roslovic. And how about Jordan Stahl? Are you picking up Jordan Stahl in this massive heater that he's on, Nate?
I mean, next week I could be looking at it. He's got 5 goals and 8 points in his last 5 at this point.
What?
Obviously, has the hat trick against the Leafs. So yeah, I mean, I don't think that this is going to continue. We have no indication from the last like decade of Jordan Stahl's career that would say that this could continue. But sometimes these guys get hot for a little bit and they stay in the flames. They're gonna have lots of time to prepare for this Wednesday, Friday scenario. So I could see a scenario where they come out guns blazing and they actually get the biz and get some stuff done. Yeah, I think, I mean, Roslovic hasn't done anything as of late, but he's still been stuck with Aho and Jarvis, or they've been stuck with him more accurately. As long as that's continuing, I think you got to at least consider it just because he's popped off in that spot like 3 separate weeks already so far this
Yep.
season. And so who's to say that it won't be next week once again, where he just, pops 2 goals in one game and a goal and an assist in the other game. And he's like the best streamer you could have possibly had. It's kind of just what Jack Roslovic does. He does all of his scoring in like 4 separate games
Yeah.
throughout the
Get him in
entire
the right
season.
week.
Yeah. So that's definitely something to look at. I totally agree with your assessment of Orlov. The underlying numbers in the last little bit also look decent. 22nd amongst all defensemen, shots per 60 over the last 5 games, 21 minutes a night. Not too bad. So I think that that's definitely the best option on the back end if he's out there. Yeah, Slavin, I mean, Sean Walker's on the second power play unit. Brent Burns was on the top power play unit. Um, Ty Smith experiment seems to be over for the time being. So I don't really have any interest in Sean Walker, to be quite honest with you. He's only playing 16 minutes a night. He is not scoring any points whatsoever. So yeah, I think that that kind of sums it up on the back end. It's kind of Orlov or bust, most likely, unless you're really desperate for some blocks with Slavin.
Yeesh. Yeah, this is like another coin flip week, isn't it? You're just going to have to rely on the guys you drafted and your horses to kind of take you there, right? On those busy nights. All right, moving on. There are 9 teams that play 4 games with 1 off night. We're not going to go through all those, but I mean, they're all either the Monday off night or the Sunday off night. So that's going to really tie your hands unless you're doing 1-game streams, which maybe you want to do. I don't know. That's not normally a strategy that we like to employ, but I don't know. You could be desperate, right? Sunday might be the time where you're looking to stream some people in to try and take your matchup over the top. But otherwise, like these streamers on these teams are probably going to be pretty useless. I don't know. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously depends on the level of streamer in your league too. Like, if the best streamer that you can find from Buffalo or Carolina is like Jack Roslovic for 2 games, and you're comparing that to, I mean, let's just see, like if Sam Bennett got dropped in your league or something like that, and you could pull him up for the Monday and get that out of the way, like maybe that's a better option than 2 games of Jack Roslovic. Maybe like Blake Coleman from Calgary is a better option in one night than 2 games of Jack Roslovic. Like there are
Yeah.
probably some scenarios where that does make some sense, but yeah, overall, it's generally a better strategy if the players are at all comparable. It's generally a better strategy to give yourself 2 outs in terms of games played versus just the one.
All right, buddy. Well, that's depressing. You know what's not depressing? The Apples and Ginos Patreon. And Nate has got a beautiful presentation prepared for you. Feast your eyes on what this man has to offer.
All right, for $2 a month, you can join the supporter tier. It gives you access to Patreon-only live shows. I was planning to do one earlier this week, but I was getting sick. Like as Monday progressed, I was getting more and more ill. Made it through that, but yeah, I had a stomach bug this week, and let's just say it was unpleasant.
Let's hear some more
Basically,
details about that, Nate. What
yeah,
happened specifically?
what happened specifically was I couldn't keep anything inside of my body for like 3 days. So,
Oh,
um, yeah, that's what happened to me. But that all means that I will be doing the live show this coming Monday instead. After the Puzzling Players live stream in the Apples and Ginos Discord, we have a stage where I do that for the patrons. So you can join, and I'll be putting that out. I've already put out the PDF of the buys and sells that I'm going to be talking about. So you can join early and get a head start there if you'd like to. But that will be happening this coming Monday. What is that? The 13th? Is that right? 13th?
oh God, I
I'm
don't
doing
know.
math.
I'm sorry about this.
Yes,
Yes, the 13th.
13th.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
correct. Moving on, Apple's tier, $8 a month gets you access to those Patreon only live shows, access to Patreon only Discord channels, access to the show notes, like these show notes here. You can get my very particular rankings of all the streamers for this week that are so fantastic that I had to include Vasily Pozitkolzin and Jordan Stahl on them. And also for the flagship show, you'll get those show notes as well if you want to take a deeper dive there. It also gives you access to the Apples and Geos player evaluation tool, which gives you that last 5 games look for any player. You can compare players side by side, make those add, drop, or trade decisions. For the true degenerates, the Genos tier exists. $15 a month gets you all of the previous perks mentioned, plus every single one of your questions guaranteed to be answered by yours truly. Like, are you ready for the dream streams?
Buddy, I'm always ready, but you always forget about the apple pie tier, buddy. All right. For an unnamed sum, you get access to a 24/7 camera that is in Nate's house. It's like a big brother situation. You get to just watch him cook his breakfast and go on the computer and do his job and stuff. It's riveting stuff. I really like it.
All right. Yeah,
All
hit
right.
me up if you're interested in watching me 24/7 so I know to
This,
put a
this is
restraining
the
order on
true,
you.
yeah, true life of a fantasy hockey podcaster right there.
All right, let's get into it here. The dream streams are not quite so dreamy this week. As we mentioned, Jason Zucker, JJ Paterka, probably your best bets. If you want to go early week just to get it out of the way, then Victor Arvidsson makes some sense. Going back to Buffalo for the next few, Byram, Power, throwing Cousins there as well. I think that makes some sense. Jack Roslovic, assuming he maintains that Aho Jarvis line one exposure, would come up here. Dmitry Orlov, and then yeah, let's throw in Podkolzin and Stahl at the end here. Stahl, just for how hot he's been, have to pay the man some respect that's due his name. Did I miss anybody here? Are you going to campaign for Jordan Martinook now?
God, I'm surprised you got 10. So no names were missed.
No names were missed. Let's continue on, talk about some bangers situations. Best for hits. William Carrier, I actually didn't see if he returned to this game here tonight, so I can check that real quick. No, he's still out. He's been kind of up in the air for the last couple of games. But yeah, it sounds like they don't even necessarily have a timeline, but it's been very day to day. I guess he's just like, because he's a fourth liner, like nobody cares and they're not even asking the coach about
You
him.
don't
I
even
don't know
get the
what that
updates.
is.
Yeah.
But yeah, if he's healthy, this guy hits a ton. He's got in his last 6 games, he has a couple where he just like donuts, like 0 hits, 1 hit. But then the other 4 games in the last six, 8 hits, 6 hits, 7 hits, 6 hits. Like this guy does that. So if you can get him, if he is playing, then William Carrier makes a lot of sense there. Connor Clifton from Buffalo, another good look there. Vasily Podkolzin does that and probably kind of is the best to like kind of straddle the line between offering some point scoring upside and some hits. Jordan Stahl makes sense in that regard as well. Beck Malenstein from Buffalo as well. heading over to blocks. Bowen Byram is actually like the block king as of late. I don't know if anybody else is catching on to this, but he's been throwing up blocks like it's his job. And I've been like unable to drop him in one league where blocks are kind of at a premium. I'm like, okay, he's just like, he doesn't even have to score points. He just has to keep putting up this amount of blocks, and he's still outscoring like every other defenseman that's out there. So, Bowen Byram, if he's out there, it makes a lot of sense for that. Brett Kulak on Edmonton has been doing that as of late as well. Connor Clifton shows up here as well. He's definitely the most well rounded between hits and blocks if you're looking for somebody to do both of those things. Jacob Slavin, as we mentioned, and then Jordan Stahl shows up here as well. So, Jordan Stahl does show up as a bit of a better, well rounded option for hits and blocks as well, especially if you want to add some blocks from a forward slot, which is always kind of nice. Anything about these beefers that you want to add to the puzzle here, Blake?
Just prime rib roast right there. As a player, I just want to bring attention to really quick. He doesn't have any off nights, so it's not a great stream. But Dante Fabro of Columbus, he's been getting a ton of minutes, and he's been putting up a bunch of blocks. So just as an aside, like if you're stat hunting, Dante Fabro, like his last 3 games, 4 blocks, 5 blocks, 4 blocks. He's kind of doing that on the regular. So just want to throw his name out there.
Sounds good. Let's move on then to Hold Me. This is the section where we identify all of the players that we would most like to hold us in the deep dark night when our voices are not performing as well as we'd want them to. Top of the list has to be Brian Rust with that beautiful facial hair that matches Blake's own. Brian Rust has made and maintained his spot on the top of this list. Like, I don't know what he has to do, honestly, to get rostered in more than 50% of leagues. He's got 5 points his last 5 games, again, skating
That's
21
crazy.
minutes a night alongside Sidney Crosby, but still nobody wants to roster this man. So make it make sense. Pavel Buchnevich, also, I like here as well. He's been on a bit of a heater. 6 points in his last 5. He's 302nd in shots per 60, but 71st in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. 11th in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. The Blues in general have really turned it around under Jim Montgomery, and so I'd like to get a piece of that if I can. Logan Cooley would be next up here for me. He was actually between Keller and Schmaltz in this game for Utah here. And so that's obviously pretty interesting. We kind of talked about this, right? Like back half of the year, does Cooley get this look on the top line? Now that Gunther's out of the picture, they're like just kind of abandoning the second line idea, like kind of keeping their scoring separated, and they're just going all in on the top line. So yeah, Logan Cooley, top line, top power play. He's
Love
going to
it.
get all the minutes. I'm curious actually how many minutes he got because he had been getting really solid minutes before this point. 18-24, so nothing, I guess, too crazy. He's done better than that in previous games, but love to see the opportunity at least for Logan Cooley to play alongside the top line players there in Utah. Troy Terry, he's been day to day for the last couple of games. I think he'll be back this weekend, so I'm gonna keep him on the list here towards the top. He was absolutely on fire before going out with this injury. Is really unfortunate, and Anaheim has really missed him in the couple of games that he's missed. So hopefully he's back. He remains a top tier option as well. Tyler Toffoli, another good option. Nick Schmaltz, I still believe him in him to some extent to get back to where he's going to be. And then Dylan Holloway, I mentioned about St. Louis being on a heater. He was 48% rostered by when I pulled these
He's
numbers.
50
Let's
now.
see. He's right at 50 now.
Yep.
So he's probably already gone in your league if anybody's paying attention. But just in case, throw him out there. Marco Rossi, JJ Paterka. I still like both these guys, young guys. Obviously, Rossi, we talked about the concern with Cap coming back. With Paterka, it's more like, will he ever get that true top line, top power play deployment ever again? That really made him such a sleeper, quote unquote sleeper, and have such a big end to last year. If he does, then I do think he's capable of pulling that rabbit out of the hat again this year. Matthew Nyes has been on a tremendous heater. His rostership has obviously shot up as well. Dmitry Voronkov, same story there. So both of those guys kind of following a similar path. So if they're out there, then they're obviously good looks at this point. Do I think that they maintain? In Voronkov's case, I think the question is more: does he maintain the top line, top power play for the rest of the season? In Nice's case, it's more like, can he actually sustain this when he's never really shown a propensity to put up a ton of shots and individual scoring chances for on his own? Um, is it enough to just be attached to Matthews and Marner all the time for him to really have a huge impact rest of season? It's worth the bet based on the recent returns, him potentially staying in the Flames there. And for what it's worth, his numbers have come up during this 5 game stretch where he's been so hot. So worth shouting out both of those guys. And then as we get towards the back end here, Quentin Byfield, Jonathan Huberdeau, Jonathan Drouin, Pierre-Luc Dubois, I'm going to throw in here just for Blake, Anders Lee, Stefan Nason, Jason Zucker, and I do still have Elias Lindholm on the back end here. What do you think of the list so far here, Blake? Is there any rearranging you'd like to do? Any players you'd like to highlight?
Um, it's a great list. I'm excited. Halfway through the season, we still have so many options that are 50% rostered and under. Like there's some gems in here. Troy Terry at 34%. What the hell? No. And his wife had a baby. That's why he was day to day.
Okay.
And yeah, and
Missed
the
that.
baby, yeah, there was like not a complicated, like they needed a bit more time there. So that's why he
Sure.
missed 2 games, but he should be back, no problem. Cooking like he did. Obviously, Nate says PLD's my guy, but he's rostering him in his favorite league. So I just want to throw that out there as well. And he's on a 66-point pace, as predicted by yours truly. So I feel good about that. I did want to mention as well, Evgeny Malkin, his rostership is dipped to 50%. So yeah, I mean, if Malkin's out there, I think you got to have him. He's not been playing well, but we know what the player's able to do, and he's still like a 60 to 65 point player, I think, even the way he's playing right now. So I think that's a player that should be rostered. But yeah, this is exciting stuff. Logan Cooley is definitely a player of interest. And like you said with Brian Rust, what does he have to do? Like the guy has just been going off. I'm surprised that's not higher.
Yep. Agreed there. Let's move on. Sub 20% rostered. Adam Fantilli's going to top this list for me. He's got 5 points his last 5 games, and he is the 1-to-1 replacement for Sean Monahan, top line, top power play as of the last game here, and seems to be making good on it. Increased ice time. Everything across the board is coming up Adam Fantilli at the moment. It's on him now to make the most of this opportunity, but if you know me, I've been talking about this guy. I talked about him as a sleeper in the offseason. Hasn't hit this year, has had a bit of a sophomore slump. Kind of the only guy, it feels like, in Columbus to take a step backwards instead of forwards under Dean Evison this year. Maybe the system isn't agreeing with him quite as well. I'm not sure how deep we want to dive that, but I still believe in the player, what he's able to do in a pretty decent sample size in his rookie year, and obviously the pedigree of the prospect coming into the league, second overall pick in his draft year. I still really believe in Adam Fantilli, and I really like this spot for him to potentially pop off for the next little bit with Monahan out, and then potentially secure a spot on the top power play, even if he does get bumped down when Monahan returns. So that would be kind of the run out that you're hoping for with an Adam Fantilli ad. But in the meantime, it feels like a spot where you can grab him, you can enjoy the production right now, and then if it still is happening when Monahan comes back, then you'll just be even more excited. So I like that look a lot, and he's definitely the top guy under 20% roster for me. Logan Stankoven, I know the results aren't there, but 23rd in shots per 60.
Yeah.
The guy's still doing it under the hood. It's just been terrible, terrible luck. He has a 3.9% shooting percentage on the season. He's 13th in the league on the season in shots per 60. So, like, things have to go right for this guy at some point or another. I do believe they will. It is kind of like a situation where he's kind of being left out with the dregs of the lineup in a lot of cases as they move these lines around with the injuries they've had. The last game he was out there with Sam Steele and Maverick Bork. I think Maverick Bork will be a really good player in the league, but this is obviously his rookie season, and we're not expecting big things from him just yet. And then Sam Steele is a guy who's been around the league a few times and not a guy that you're going to look to for a bunch of offense. So it's just kind of a situation thing for Logan Stankoven, but I do believe there's a player there. William Eklund, Tyler Bertuzzi, Michael Bunting, Jaden Schwartz, Victor Arvidsson, Pavel Dorofiev, and Pavel Zaka, and then Igor Sharangovich round out the list here. Anybody here that you'd like to highlight, Blake?
Yeah, I like William Eklund a lot. I think he was injured, so I think he's off people's radar right now. He's been back for 3 games though, still getting a ton of deployment, like 20 minutes last game. line one, power play one. And San Jose is a fun team, right? They're not going to win a lot of games, but yeah, like I just like the player and I like the pedigree of the player. So he's definitely a player of interest for me.
Yeah, one thing I don't think I mentioned when we talked about Arvidsson, when talking about Edmonton and their good schedule, his under the hood numbers the last 5 games have been terrific. 11th in shots per 60, 6th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 9th on ice Corsi, 4 per 60. So that is another reason to consider Arvidsson for that Monday, Wednesday early week stream next week. All right. Let's move it along. Sub 10% rostered. We got Victor Olofsson at 9%, Mason McTavish, Matt Coronado, Taylor Hall, Anthony Duclair. I still have some love for McTavish here. I know that the results haven't really come through, but 118th in shots per 60. It does seem like as Troy Terry got injured that this team, like, it felt like they were coming together, and then it felt
Mhm.
like it fell apart a little bit again. The Fabry Gauthier wings have not paid out as well as they had for a few game stretch there. Maybe they just need to rejig this thing and once again, but it does feel like Terry kind of held this lineup together, and with him out, that everybody's gripping their sticks a little tighter or something here. So
Giggity.
hopefully that goes a little bit better moving forward. Over on the defense side, we got Jackson Lacombe, and he's still doing it. He's got 4 points, 2 goals in his last five, 23 minutes a night, fifth amongst all defensemen in shots per 60. I think he had like a 7 shot night the other night. Some crazy stuff out of Jackson Lacombe so
Yeah.
far. Still only 28% rostered because no one believes an Anaheim Duck defenseman can do such things, which is fair. But yeah, he's at least worth having a look at this point. And then if you head over to St. Louis, then we got Cam Fowler here. He's at 42% rostered. Bowen Byram and Owen Power in the 30s. And then you got Luke Hughes, who has slipped below 50% rostered. And I don't know exactly what to make of Luke Hughes, but I do think he's immensely more talented than anybody else that's below 50% rostered. So I figured I'd include him on the list there. Sub 20% rostered, Justin Falk has to be the guy here. He and Cam Fowler, they've been doing like a split power play thing in the last few games. Buchnevich and Thomas on one power play, Kairu, Shen, Holloway on another power play. And so Falk and Fowler are the two defensemen on either power play unit. So Justin Falk still has some viability in my mind just because of that. And then Oliver Ekman Larson, just a guy skating a lot of minutes with some offensive upside on a pretty good Leafs team that you could count on for some goals. Anything you want to say about the defenseman here, Blake?
Yeah. Well, your take on Jackson Lacombe, like obviously he's doing the thing right now, but we know what Greg Cronin's been doing with Pavel Mintyukov and Owen Zellweger. And I think those two are kind of interchangeable. He's scratching one of them, the other one's playing. Do you think Jackson Lacombe gets in that mix of like, play one games, get scratched one game, or is he safe from that?
I don't think anybody's safe from Greg Cronin in Anaheim. Yeah, the hellscape still exists in my mind. It's not a distant memory just yet. So I don't think anybody's safe. But if I'm gonna bet on somebody, like you're talking about guys who are probably not going to set the world on fire that
Yep.
we're talking about rostering here. Like Owen Power doesn't have any points in his last 5 games, so we're still talking about him as one of the top 5 defensemen to potentially pick up. That's how bad it gets at this point in the season. This is why I like to grab some pretty solid defensemen in my drafts pretty
Yep.
early. But yeah, when you get to this point and you're looking at somebody like Jackson Lacombe, maybe it's a bit of a swing, and maybe he does get dropped down. But if it hits, like if he continues as the power play one defenseman, getting 23 minutes, if he continues to shoot at anywhere close to this rate, then he's gonna outproduce everybody else on this list by a fair bit, in my opinion. So for that reason, I'm willing to take that risk.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, I want to get your thoughts on one more thing.
Mm.
Sean Dursey he's been skating, and sounds like he's fairly close to returning, like maybe by the end of January here. And he's 16 or 14% rostered right now. I did see a tweet that he looked really good, like he was whipping his shots. Like he had a shoulder injury there, but one of the things that I just wanted to bring this player up is he was getting a ton of deployment. And granted, he only played like 3 games, got injured in the 4th game, but the ice time there with Sergachev in the lineup was 22 minutes, 25 minutes, 29 minutes, and then he got injured in the fourth game. So do you think this is a player like maybe you can take a swing on at this point in the season? Like, and I'll be honest, I've added him in 3 spots because I didn't need to make any moves at the beginning of this week. So I was able to add him directly into my IR just as a flyer, right? And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that strategy.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting look. He probably slots into like the Oliver Ekman Larson kind of range for me. Maybe a spot just below. I mean, if he does come back and gets 28 minutes a night, then yeah, that obviously changes things. But I don't think that can be your baseline expectation for any defenseman, especially when coming back off of injury. Um, the thing that still gives me pause with Dursey is that so much of his potential for fantasy was tied up in that power play. Like 16 out of his 41 points for Arizona last year were on the power play. And so if you subtract a good chunk of those power play points, um, I don't know what would be a reasonable number, like an 8 power play point pace from a second unit, something like that. Then you take an 8 off the top, you're talking about a guy on a 33 point pace, something in that range. And is that really rosterable? This is a guy who blocks a lot. So maybe it is, depending on your league settings, depending on what you need. It's worth looking at for sure. If you've gotten to the end of this week and you don't need to make a bunch of ads and you're sitting pretty in your matchup and Sean Dursey's out there, you can add him straight to IR or IR plus. Yeah, that could be a look for sure. Let's move over to the goaltenders. Yeah, it's 0G time. Cam Talbot, Karlovich Melka, Lucas Dostal, Elvis Merzlikins, Charlie Lindgren are the top 5 under 50 here. Sub 25% rostered, you get down to Petr Mrazek, John Gibson, Tristan Jarry, and that's probably going to round it out for you. John Gibson is the one that I want to highlight here. Like, he's been pretty good for quite a bit here, just further cementing the goalies are voodoo in my mind. I don't know what's changed. Like, it's the same team that he's been terrible on for like 3 years, 4 years at this point. Not that much has changed in my mind. Like, it's the same coach that they had last year when he was not good. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just that Dostal is taking half the starts, and that's what Gibson needed, was just less workload. They're talking about this on the 32 Thoughts podcast, Friedman and Bukowskis. And they were kind of split on what the reasoning was behind it. But either way, it's hard to deny that Gibson has been pretty good. So especially if you're just looking for some rate stats here, he's been doing that. Like, Anaheim will give up some shots. So if the goaltender is going to play well, then I mean, he's gonna get saves. He's gonna get a decent save percentage if he's playing well. They're like giving up shots, but they're also playing better than they have in the past. Like, it is a better situation for sure for a goaltender than it ever has been in the past. So I want to shout out John Gibson there as somebody who's been hot. Maybe he stays hot for a little bit longer. Very lowly rostered, and definitely worth looking at the moment. Any of these goaltenders that you want to talk about, Blake?
I like Merzlikins. I picked him up in a couple spots. I think I just like what's going on in Columbus right now, and he's the clear number one. Like, Daniil Tarasov, they sent him away. He's loaned on a conditioning, whatever. They got Jet Graves coming back, but he's not going to take Merzlikins' spots. So I think there's some good volume to be had with Merzlikins. I also want to just throw out Connor Ingram as well. He's 37% rostered. I mean, it's a flyer, right? We need to see what happens, like we talked about. But yeah, if he's out there, I think that's worthy of your ad as well.
Good shot there. Merzlikins has gone from 5 goals allowed to 4 to 3 to 2. So next 2 starts, you should definitely jump on that. Will
He's
be
going to get
1 goal
bombed.
against and then 0
Yeah.
against. So definitely, it'll be interesting to see how he gets -1 goal against, but I'm here for it. All right. We've got one more order of business to follow up on. Unfortunately, this is the head-to-head streamer deathmatch. And Blake took Ross Colton, who has scored 13.25 cacophil points with 1 game left this week. I took Jaden Schwartz, knowing full well he was going to do exactly this to me, 2.25 points in his 2 games so far. Does have 2 left, but he's going to have to pull a rabbit out of his hat in these last 2 games to surpass Colton. What do you want to say about this here, Blake?
Well, I just want to say that, you elected to choose Jaden Schwartz when you could have taken Chandler Stevenson. He's got 2 assists in 2 games, buddy. What happened there?
My thought process there are a few players that I trust less than Jaden Schwartz, but Chandler Stevenson is one of them. And that's about where I left it. So yeah, I think that's all I would like to say about that. If you made it this far, you should probably click the link in the description. Join the Discord community, 1,500 plus fantasy managers talking fantasy hockey all day and all night. If you have enjoyed any of the things that you've heard us ramble about here tonight, then like, rate, review, subscribe, comment. All of that does help us out a lot, and we do read and appreciate everything that you do. But that's going to be all that we've got for this episode. Hopefully, it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, a terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band that are there for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.